This is the Business Elite Brevard Edition podcast. Grab a pen, grab a paper, and get settled in, because here's another rockstar episode featuring the biggest movers, shakers, and industry leaders from the Space Coast of Florida. And welcome everyone, again, another great episode here on the beautiful Space Coast at Space Coast Podcast Studios. My name is Jesse Hall, and you're listening to Business Elite Brevard Edition, where we take a close look at all the movers and shakers, influencers, and people behind the scenes making incredible moves on behalf of our beautiful area here on the Space Coast, again, Brevard County, Florida. And in the studio, I'm super privileged to have beside me one of my biggest, I don't want to say influencers that I follow, but yeah, she kind of is. She's one of those people who, when she speaks, I listen. That goes a lot to say, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of noise out there, and for me to stop what I'm doing and pay attention, it says a lot. It says a lot, and again, it's a privilege, not only because she's finally in the studio, but also because it's such a big. There's so many big things happening on our area, and for her to give her time to you and myself is pretty huge. Something that I can't thank her enough for. So, Lynda, welcome to the show. And there's so much to start with, but the biggest thing is for me to really have our audience get to know you personally. People know kind of what maybe the EDC is, and we're going to get to really dive into what it is and what it does. But you've been in a position now, in a leadership role, for quite a bit. Tell us about what Lynda was doing before the EDC.
Well, before I came to this EDC, I was working for a short term, about a year at Titusville EDC. So I got used to the Brevard County area. But prior to that, I was actually in Hong Kong. I was finishing up my master's degree at the University of Hong Kong and doing some work there. And so
that's amazing.
Yeah. And
how long were you there?
From about 89 to 91. And Hong Kong at the time was still, they referred to as part of still the Crown Colony system.
Yes.
And so it was English university, but very, very few Westerners were there, and very few Taiwanese are there. Mostly Hong Kong Chinese were there. It was a wonderful experience. It was a very special time.
Well, to be abroad for any amount of time, and especially continuing education, that postgraduate education, that's pretty significant. Not many people, I'd imagine, have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I studied geography or economic geography years ago, and a lot of those geography is English-driven. You don't see a lot of geographers in the United States who are like business majors. So you see a lot of that, and I've always had an interest in studying overseas. I wrote my first master's degree on East African economic development policies. So I've always had this yearning, and then when I had a chance to get a scholarship and study at the University of Hong Kong, it was great. What's more fascinating was I remember this was a long time ago,
sure.
20-some years ago or more. Time flies.
Yes, it does.
Actually, I've had this job over 20 years. So it's almost 30 years, but I traveled through mainland China on an independent visa, which is to get an independent visa to go into mainland China. It's not hard. It's not difficult. It's a little hard. You got to make sure you know where you're going to go. You can't do it via the mail.
Right.
So to go into mainland China 30 years ago was like walking it back about 100 years ago and see where China has gone in their economic development program from where they went to where they are now. It's very fascinating. I'm
sure, and what a remarkable culture too. The Far East.
Yeah.
It's nothing what we can assume is anything like the Western civilization, especially America here, which is such a very new country, and China and that the Far East is it's an ancient culture.
Yeah, it is, and I think not that we're supposed to talk about China today. We're talking
Sure.
about the Space Coast, but I find it we tend to think about China. A lot of people see China's economic or political economy in the last few years, which is really an anomaly. I mean, China is not necessarily a communist country. It wasn't for a long time. It's a mercantile society, and we look from the Cultural Revolution on, and that's really just a sliver of their whole history. So it's a fascinating country to watch, and they're very aggressive, and watch out. I went to school there. Believe me,
they're pretty cutthroat, huh? Well, again, on a bigger scale, on a more macro scale, there is some trade things going on, which is, it seems like it's improving, but that's neither here nor there, like you mentioned. Let's go back to where you grew up, and have you always been in Florida?
Well, I'm a Floridian by birth.
Okay.
But my father was in the service, so we grew up, in Europe a little bit and all over the United States. And my father was just an NCO, just not an officer.
Right.
But I was very privileged to grow up that way. And our backyard looked like the UN. And,
right.
I knew what Checkpoint Charlie was when I was 7 years old and 8 years old. And
fascinating.
if we had that equivalent, if you had the equivalent job in the civilian world, it would have been a small world we lived in, and maybe in a small town. But I was very lucky to grow up that way, and I think it opened up the world and your view of your country and your world. And growing up to this day, when I go on a military base, I still feel very nostalgic about it. So
I'm sure,
yeah.
And luckily for us in the Space Coast, because we do have Patrick Air Force Base, so we have lots of retirees. We have lots of people who maybe stationed at Patrick Air Force Base, and then decide to actually just, hey, I'm already here,
right.
And I already love the area. I'm already acclimated to the weather, and I already have some friends and relationships. So we see that there is quite a big population here of ex-military or even previous military brats, and it gives us an insight into the life of other cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing other people like yourself who may have been born and raised here for a little bit, but then enjoyed a lot of your adolescence in other places, and bringing up more world history, getting more cultured, or maybe learning a new language, then coming back and bringing us, those insights and, a little bit, maybe those cultures.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what's happening in Brevard County now as we
right.
speak, because if you look at the companies that have expanded here, relocated here, Embraer, classic
yes.
example. It's a Brazilian-based company. Now they did a merger with Boeing. They're importing a lot of talent into the area. So is Northrop Grumman. So is Harris. So are the other companies, Boeing
sure.
and Lockheed Martin, that both announced some headquarters here recently. So we're going to have this flood of really a new generation of new people coming into this, particularly young, talented people coming into the county. And the only other equivalent I can find is probably similar to what happened to this county in the 60s, too.
Right.
It just changed. The buying patterns, the voting patterns changed, I believe, when in the early 60s, when you had this influx of young, talented people focused on taking man to the moon. We have that happening now. It's just not quite as focused on man to the moon. It's more
right.
diversified, and whether we're doing the bomber program or the Legacy 450 and 500 of Embraer, or whether or not we're going to launch the OneWeb satellites, or it's the Blue Origin,
I know,
and rockets.
And there is a laundry list of things going on. Whereas, it was unified. It was NASA.
Yeah,
and it was
and government.
Apollo, right? And and it was very focus driven. Whereas
right.
now there's a lot of players. Now that it's gone to more private. Now we're starting to see a lot of different players and different money and different a lot of people with different intentions.
Right,
and they'll have their own objective.
Right, and the other thing, and again, when I came here, I wasn't a space person. Okay,
right.
I was an applied economist by training, and the fact that I happen to be in a really cool, neat, dynamic industry called space.
Right.
So I've learned space just as living here. What I didn't realize when I first came here, and this is 20 years ago, how this country lost the launch market. I mean, at one time we had 90%, and then we almost lost it all.
Right.
And so what's exciting now is when you see Patrick Air Force Base, and they have that march to 48. 48
sure.
launches a year. They're going to, in probably the next year or so. Remember, we had maybe 4 or 5 a few years ago. And so that dynamic, what we're doing, not just here, but for this country, in taking back and claiming the launch industry again, is so fascinating. And that's just the unmanned launches. And it's the manifest of SpaceX. It's going to be the Blue Origins. It's going to be United Launch Alliance, all of them. And, it's not too far, though. This will be a common thing. We'll probably be up to 100 launches.
Well, that's the projection. was it OneWeb alone is looking to do a weekly.
Yeah. That,
And then you say 48. I mean, that's
Yeah.
almost once a week,
Right.
except for like holidays.
Yeah, 48 will happen. It's
Right.
going to happen in probably the next 12 to maybe 14, 18 months. We'll do more than that, especially as the communication system gets more knitted together in this country.
So to follow through, you traveled the world, dad military, and then you came back. Now, where'd you get some more of your formal education before you went to China and Hong Kong?
I went to the University of South Florida in Tampa, where
Okay.
I was living, and then University of Southern Mississippi to get my first degree in economic development. And by the way,
Wow.
people say, "Oh, Mississippi." Mississippi created industrial revenue bonds in 1936. Mississippi started the first master's degree in economic development. It's actually one of the most progressive places in economic development because Mississippi had to struggle. It was a very poor state,
Right.
and they looked around and said, "What can we do to be more aggressive in developing our own economic destiny?" Which is what economic development's all about.
And I bet a lot of people listening didn't know that. So that's some good trivia
Yeah.
you're bringing already. So perfect. So you got your undergrad, Mississippi,
I was
USF.
a teacher for a short time.
Oh, you were a teacher?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
how exciting! How long? And was that primary school or secondary?
The first year I taught was sixth grade, and
Okay.
it was in Georgia. You're allowed to teach 1 year out of your subject matter, and
Cool.
I was a very passionate amateur as a teacher.
Right.
Was sixth grade, and then the second year was economics and world history in high school. So just 2 years. But everybody should. I would tell if I had to make everybody do something, it would be go and at least be a substitute teacher for just a couple of days, because it just everybody's idea of school is when they left it.
Right.
And unless you have kids, you can go back and see the teachers and talk to them. But get in front of those classes and then talk. It's an awakening.
The last I've seen, and again, I just had a minor glimpse of a classroom, and it's all digital. It's like laptops everywhere and computers.
Yeah, a teacher. Teaching is it's digital. But think about your teacher. They had to all day struggle for a captive audience,
Right.
and keep their attention, and keep their respect, and keep the discipline. It's quite
It's a challenge.
Yeah, it is.
No,
It is.
absolutely. So going from there, tell us about your family. Who's in your family now, as far as your husband, children?
No, none.
None?
Yeah, but I have family living here, and I'm
Okay.
very close to my nieces and nephews and everything. In fact, I just took a short vacation with them, and I have a nephew who's in the Marines who's now overseas and still in Afghanistan, out of the Marines, but in security. And then I have a niece and a nephew in Tampa, and two other nephews in Palm Bay.
So you're just letting the brothers and sisters take care of all the...
Yes, exactly. And I see them when they're fun time.
Exactly. All right, so moving on, because I really wanted to get to know you and have the audience get to learn more
I was just
about who
real
you are.
quick. For my 60 seconds of, I was a foster mother for a number of years, and someday maybe we'll come back and talk about the foster care system. And
absolutely.
There's beautiful, wonderful children are in the foster care system, and everybody, if you can't be a foster mother, be a guardian ad litem to participate in it. But it's a whole world that a lot of us in our day-to-day don't realize that's going on. But there's good people out there working to take care of these children.
As a guild member of the Haven for Children, I am very familiar with this place, youth, and certainly that's certainly a topic close to my heart as well.
Yeah.
So we'll cross that bridge.
Yeah.
See, we're learning so much, all kinds of things in common. If nobody knew what the EDC was, in a short, again, brief assessment, what could you tell them that they could kind of understand? Like if you're talking to like a 7-year-old.
Well, basically, it's you can talk about the structure of the EDC, but I think that's irrelevant. How I'm governed. I'm governed by a board, but I don't think people know about that. But basically, you could look at it this way: you have an economy,
Right?
You can try to take some control over your economic destiny,
Right.
mitigating challenges like the shuttle, bringing in companies and creating jobs, or you could just be vulnerable to the economic whims of what's going on locally and globally. So I don't know if that's the best description. And what the EDC does is we have a role and responsibility for creating jobs, but jobs are just the manifestation of the programs that we do.
Exactly.
Of trying to take control of economic destiny. If not, some people feel that, why do we need an EDC? And I think, well, then you're dirty, poor, and vulnerable. I mean, why there are EDCs throughout this nation,
Right.
probably about 5,000 of them, and trying to take control. And you either turn into a place unfortunately, like Detroit, that took a generation to rebound. They're coming back now. It's a wonderful story, but it took a generation. Or you try to do something ahead of time to mitigate the challenges like we had with the shuttle.
So what you're saying is for any community, there should be a proactive assembly like yourselves, the EDC, who does take a role in kind of monitoring our economic health, essentially.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. If your community doesn't, good. That's one less competition I have.
So what is special about our EDC? I mean, besides having you at the helm, tell us some of the current advancements and what's kind of your role right now, presently. And I have here in my notes, what's coming next. But what are some of the projects that people may be wondering about at home?
Well, first of all, the one thing I want to talk about is the EDC tends to be recognized by corporate relocations, and we are successful in that. It is a dogfight out there.
We've noticed.
Yeah, but it's a dogfight. What community would not want jobs? And yet part of our challenge is we're a small, modest-sized EDC in number of staff and number in our budget. Yet our competition aren't communities our size. Our competition's Austin, Charlotte, major urban areas, because we have the intellectual infrastructure of a major urban area. If you look at one of our successes, the Northrop Grumman project, that was 1,800 jobs, $100,000 a year was the end salary.
Wow.
Biggest project in the country announcement that year. So we're very good at that. I've got a very, very good staff. They know how to approach deal closing from a financial basis.
Right.
But what I'm equally proud of is there's a lot of things that we do that most EDCs don't do, and that's because we're more of a collective effort in economic development, and one is the training program that we're doing now. Mm-hmm. I think in many ways the future of economic development will be having an effective, qualified and quantified workforce. And if an EDC right now isn't involved in it, and most aren't because it's a very difficult thing to do, then we'll just be one step ahead of them.
So, and that's promising, because we do know that talent is going to other parts of the country. There especially in this industry, we have had everywhere from Alabama and with in the space race, California as well, and even I believe towards like Houston and other places. We're not the only one competing for the pool of talent. Right,
exactly. I mean, there's a reason they call it a talent job war, because it is a war for talent, and there's two ways of doing it. Alabama does a very good job in their training programs, but what the EDC does is there's two approaches. There's the growing the workforce from within. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, and this is not dismissive of Brevard County, because this whole country, we lost a generation of people going into manufacturing.
Right.
That's because people had an archaic notion of what it was. You had your children, you wanted them, you didn't want them to go work in the factory. You wanted them to have a white collar job. And what's happening now, and quite frankly, this EDC has been promoting this for years, and it's finally coming around. Now it's cool to talk about, going for a certification, not necessarily going for a 4-year degree. This EDC was talking about this years ago, showing you have a good, well-paying profession going into manufacturing, and let the EDC help you get involved in that by training and a program that we've developed. Then there's the attraction, telling the story to a young engineer who may want to go to Austin or to Nashville or to Charlotte or maybe to Melbourne or Titusville. Why would they? And that's telling the story of Brevard County to these young, talented people that are being recruited all over the country.
And with that, because I know that's going to be a big topic that we're going to uncover here in the next segment. So with that, let's go just take a quick 2-minute break. Don't go anywhere. And we'll come back and talk about some of those significant challenges that you're facing right here in the immediate future. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to be right back. Again, don't go anywhere. You're listening to Business Fleet Brevard Edition.
Hey, I'm Vinny with the all-new Vinny Marino podcast. I want you to join me every other Monday as we tackle all the craziest headlines from around Florida and truly explore and uncover what's missing. Also, we will invite the exciting guests from our community who have seen it all and aren't afraid to spill the beans about it. And finally, we can't forget about Vinny's top 3 rants and raves about traffic, restaurants, and events. Join us on Facebook as we go live and bring you behind the scenes of each show and let you be a part of it. The Vinny Marino Podcast, all Space Coast, super raw and unedited, straight to your dome all the time, live from the Space Coast Podcast Studios. Listen everywhere you find podcasts.
Hey, make sure you check out Space Cowboy Justice with your hosts, Blake Stewart and Paul Daly. We're going to be talking about interesting legal issues in the entertainment industry and everything geek. If you're into Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, comic books, we're talking about it. Coming at you from the Space Coast Podcast Studios.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com.
Space Coast Podcast.
Talk hard!
All right, as promised, we kept it short. And we're back. Once again, you're listening to Business Leap Brevard Edition, the show that brings you some of the biggest movers, shakers, influencers from the Space Coast here in Brevard County, Florida. And again, with me, Miss Lynda Weatherman. So, back from break, and we were touching on some of the challenges, for talent and stuff like that. But you reminded me that there's some fundamentals that people may not be aware of. So let's cross that bridge.
Yeah, well, I think, I was jumping to a lot of the solutions without us defining the problem
Right.
yet. A good way to think about economic development is this, is I talked earlier about how we're measured by jobs, or jobs is the manifestation of the work we do. So let's focus on job. People understand what a job is, but jobs are creating an economy 3 ways.
Right.
A company starts up, a company expands, or a company relocates.
Right.
And basically, the EDC plays a role in those areas. To have a company expand requires the environment,
Right.
whether it's the cost of doing business, the workforce that you need for them to be able to expand. The company to relocate requires those issues too, but also you're making the competitive advantage of doing business here and the cost versus another place for cost of doing business. Are we of value for money? And then the startup is the one, mostly if you think about innovation companies, do we have the innovation ecosystem that is conducive for startup companies, particularly in the innovation side, is where we focus on.
So what if someone is in the innovation space, what is important to them?
What's important to them is having the environment. Part of that is the venture funds, access to venture funds.
Okay.
Having access. And Florida hasn't been a real big player. In fact, recently we just had about 6 weeks ago, we had Steve Case come in here in his Rise of the Rest campaign. And the reason he came into Brevard County and also Orlando, Tampa, and then Puerto Rico is that he recognized and understood that like 95% of the venture funds are on the East Coast and the West Coast. Yet that doesn't mean all the best opportunities and ideas and products and talents and successes and companies aren't necessarily there. But the money usually drives the companies. So Florida needs to play a stronger role in providing venture, startup, or mezzanine financing. It also needs the environment of collaboration with other people and getting ideas. Mm-hmm. You need the physical infrastructure. We have a wonderful, it's more than an incubator, called Groundswell in Melbourne.
Yep, familiar.
Yeah, it's really good. We're a partner in that organization, and we're very pleased with that. So that you walk in there and you see the young people and they're talking, and it's just you think you're in a movie. It's like a movie set because it seems almost cliche at times, but that's what they want. That's how they learn and they thrive, and they brought up to collaborate with ideas and everything like that.
I've been there for a couple of symposiums where they've brought in, we talked about different topics and such, and wow, what a lot of learning. And there's a lot of talented people here on the Space Coast.
And they're wicked smart. They are.
Really smart, and just and hearing about some of their ideas of what this could be, of managing one of the biggest spaceports and being known as the spaceport, the home of the gateway to space is what we're calling it, and so a lot of people are very excited about that brand.
Yeah.
And so starting to see some of these guys, and they are collaborating, and whether it's they might not be the next SpaceX or Elon Musk providing the means to ISS or even the moon or Mars, they're behind the scenes with maybe helping with the missions. Because there's a lot of different missions. Is it a communication satellite? Is it, this or that?
It's ground support equipment. It's
exactly.
The financing was the next wave that will be coming in, the financing behind these companies and stuff like that. So it's a true, what you see, we talked earlier about launches and how excited we were. Well, what's happening in economic development, you always talk about diversification of an industrial base. It doesn't usually happen. That's like, but it's happening here. We go from a product called RUAG that's building a product that's a Swiss company that's being put on the OneWeb satellite, which is backed, by Airbus, which is going to go on Steve Bezos, Glenn rocket, and is going to be launched from here. That is, it's a transformation of the economic base in Brevard County, and you just don't see that. It's such an exceptional time happening here. We're so very lucky in many ways,
and hence why this is so important. Because to inform people, and again, there are some laypersons who are just out there and they're just living their grind, but they notice the launches, they hear the sonic booms, they know there's activity.
Yeah.
They notice there's a little bit maybe more traffic in Brevard County than
or they think
years.
it's going to happen anyway. I mean, or they think this magically happened. I mean, one thing is, Florida's growing. It will always grow, and it has grown. But that's not what you're doing in an economic development program and policies at the EDC. If you grow, people come in, they go to the grocery store. That's all they're doing. You want to be able to kind of create the jobs that if you have children, you want them to come back and have good, well-paying jobs so they can contribute, add to the tax base and add to the cultural infrastructure of the area. So you can control control, I don't know if it's the right word, but at least somehow
just manage.
Manage your economic future is what it is. It just doesn't happen. I mean, look where we were a little bit more than 10 years ago. The shuttle was retiring. It was 9,000 to 10,000 direct jobs, and we didn't. Our labor force might have been maybe, I don't know, this might have been 10% of it.
Right.
But while we were trying to prepare for that, what happened? It happened at the same time as the deepest, longest recession in the history of this country. And I know I sat on the Federal Reserve. I saw the numbers. It was. Now, you show me a community that can get that clobbered.
Right.
And in 10 years, in fact, it happened so quickly. I think people forgot where we were 10 years ago. Right. You're in real estate. You saw how we were 10, 12 years ago.
Though there's stories all the time of people leaving the keys in a door as they exited and took the next bus out of town.
And so it just didn't happen overnight magically. This economic base that's created didn't just happen. There's a lot of hard work that went on years before that. A lot of business leaders were involved in this. This EDC worked very hard. Our partners worked very hard. And, it's really, we're an exception. I mean, I could, again, we looked at the case of Detroit. It takes them, they're turning around, but it took normally a generation to turn around, and we did it in 10 or 12 years. Now we need to continue the momentum. Now we have other challenges that are inherent in that, and that's workforce we talked about earlier.
Right. And to piggyback on that, so we know the Renaissance, for lack of a better term, that we've been seeing, the magical growth, the big investment, people really trusting in what we have as a facility, as a talent, as an area. We have, the Cape Canaveral and a beautiful Kennedy Space Center, thankfully, as a legacy from the Apollo and Saturn and shuttle missions and everything else. So now we have a really good amount of launch pads. We have the infrastructure. We have a lot of good engineers who have already kind of know what it takes. United Launch Alliance you mentioned before as well. So you still have some remnants of what people knew was the sort of basis and what our history was and what it kind of could be. And so we're starting to see, like you mentioned, a lot of unmanned launches, even though now we're just testing just recently. We're testing launch manned launch capsules, and we just saw Orion
the
go
Orion,
up,
right.
which was very exciting.
Yeah, and
Kind of woke me up.
here's what's exciting about the Orion too, and
Yeah.
I want to remind people again, because this announcement was in 2006. This EDC led the effort. When the Orion before it was the Orion, it was called the Crew Exploration Vehicle, CEV, and both Lockheed Martin and Boeing were competing for this. This EDC decided this doesn't happen in economic development.
Right.
Usually it happens in economic development. You have a product. Hey, I built the widget. Where am I going to locate it? On the greenfield side or where I am? So what we did is we went to both Lockheed Martin and we went to Boeing, and we asked the question before it was even asked, where are you going to site the CEV? And our argument was the only elasticity and cost you have would be the site of location. So we worked with making that argument, working with the state, and Jeb Bush, who was governor at the time, putting together an incentive package, and they chose to locate here. What was significant about that is not that in my world, it's really cool because we approach it differently. Right. And before that, but it was the first time in 50 years of history of space in the state that we brought the assembly work of a launch vehicle. That was a paradigm shift that began right there.
And it was amazing.
And now it's launching.
And now we're starting to see the fruits of the labor.
Yeah.
And
as a community, we should be very proud of it. That was the beginning of the shift, and that's when it was also happening when the layoffs were starting to occur. So I think it was a nice shot in the arm and recognition to this community that there is a second chapter. This isn't like the Apollo days. If we're smart enough, we work hard enough, we can right this ship. Exactly.
And now we're proving it that we don't need to be subsidized by the U.S. government.
Right, exactly.
We're doing it privately. And thankfully, the people who are taking charge. I know Richard Branson with Virgin. He wants to do. He's been talking about putting people in orbit. Just for anti-gravity. Space tourism, and we're getting closer to that. We're starting to see, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. We're starting to see SpaceX and Tesla owner Elon Musk. So some of the billionaires are now investing in our area. They see the writing on the wall. They know it's not going to be the government's opportunity to take us back to the moon or Mars or beyond. It's their opportunity. Right. And so that's very exciting, where we're actually able to see individuals take us and further us and use what the Space Coast already has as a foundation.
Right. And that's why your launches have increased, okay? Because government was, there used to be a saying when I first came here to do work. They said if Washington sneezed, Brevard County got a cold.
That's
because we were so tied to the government. Now, it's still important to us. Don't get us wrong. It's still very much defense contractors are very, very critical here. But we did want to diversify it. And when a lot of these were more commercial-driven launches, made us more competitive. The cost of launches went down.
Exactly.
When the cost of launches went down, you have more. It's supply and demand, simple economics.
And now they're reusing boosters.
Exactly.
So there's reduction in waste. And
exactly.
And it's really exciting. So to kind of still go back, because I really want people to understand how they may have an opportunity as well. For some people who are not maybe excited about their current career or job position, let's talk about some trades that are in demand that people could go to school maybe for 6, 10, even 12 months and come out on the other side. And we're talking about CAD design, CNC, machinery, 3D printing, and such like that. If you were going to talk to a high school student and say, listen, you go do a STEM, if you really like science, technology, and engineering and math, you could go do that. Or stay in town and do what? What would you say to them?
Here's what I would say. If you don't want to go to college, you don't have an interest in going to college, you don't want to have the college debt, you want a better paying job when you get out of college.
Right.
I would encourage them to go into the technical field and specifically focus in the manufacturing economy. What we're facing in manufacturing is a lot of people are starting to retire. People that are 45 years or older, that's over half of our market, 55%.
Oh, so that's a problem.
It is a problem, especially since we're having this renaissance of manufacturing. But if you want to have a good paying career, go into manufacturing. And the EDC has a program that introduces you into the manufacturing economy. Let's look at it this way. If we want precision welders, if you want friction stir welders, they don't start doing it like we did in our career. We had to start somewhere. So
Correct.
What the EDC is doing is we're creating that workforce from within. This will set us apart in 5 or 10 years, or maybe 3 years, from any EDC in the country. That will be our most competitive advantage. And it won't just be cost of doing business, and it won't just be incentive. It will be that we have 50 welders that could read blueprints looking for work. Nobody in this country can say that right now. We can't say that right now, but we will soon.
That's excellent. And who are you partnering with? Is are you seeing that the Brevard public school system is helping? Or?
Yeah, we're doing a lot with the Brevard public school through junior achievement,
Very
and
cool.
and also Ogali has it's a really fascinating that Bill McInnes, she's doing, it's like an A&P mechanic school for aviation, really wonderful little program there. We're also pushing the CPT into the high school certified production technician. It's a National Association of Manufacturing certification for the background of it. Work very closely with Matt Susan, who is
Matt's a good guy.
Yeah, I met Matt about 5 or 6 years ago, and and the first thing he said was, we need to have more manufacturing certifications. I go, you bet we do. Here's what we're trying to get off the ground, because it took a while for the EDC to get this program off the ground, because it's, what's an EDC getting involved in workforce for? And, just it was questionable.
Right.
Because it wasn't. But one thing is, I'm proud that the board of directors were able to support this crazy idea we had.
Right.
Anyway, so that's what I would say to do that, because it's not that I want to be disparaging of anything that's retail or anything like in that economy. They're very important. But if you want a job that has a skill, what can I say? You like an enhanced skill opportunities.
Right.
You could start packing boxes if you want. Become a CPT student. Go and work on surface mount technology work, and then you could become a CNC machinist, or then you can become precision welder.
Right.
That will get you in there. And there's a lot of programs out there, funding and structure. We do it. We find the money for these students. But most important, it matters to the manufacturers. And they're the ones that support this program, because all of our programs are calibrated by what the manufacturers say. It can't just be a crazy idea Lynda had, and then
you're not going to throw mention to a kid, hey, just get any manufacturing position or trade, because there's a lot of trades, electricians, plumbers, we needed them all.
Right. And I would tell you that that's important. The reason we focus on manufacturing, because that's our market. But I'll tell you a quick story. I heard someone say the other day, and I won't say who, but their daughter was saying, I want to be a millionaire. And a person said, you know what you need to do? You need to study accounting and get a HVAC certification.
Yeah. 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 HVAC in Florida.
Yeah.
That's a good career.
So basically, that's if you want to make money.
Right.
That's how you do it, through trades.
Exactly.
Trades will set you apart.
And not only that, but because we have been so hyper focused on getting that 4-year degree,
right? Mm-hmm.
We have a generation. I know, as a Gen Xer, for even us, we were groomed. I went to a college preparatory, not a high school.
Yeah.
We were groomed to go on to a 4-year, and I didn't. And I ended up getting a trade.
What, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool, Jesse.
I did one semester at BCC when Eastern Florida was BCC, and I just felt like I was, busting tables at night, trying to go to school during the day. I wasn't focused. More focused on getting money to pay rent and take care of my bills than I was to do my classes. And I thought there's got to be a better way. I ended up following my dad's footsteps and getting a massage therapy license and doing that. And that career took off.
Yeah.
And then school was way behind me, and I just had opportunity.
If you have a skill will set you apart. If
Exactly.
you have just a 4-year degree, I mean, I can't tell you how many resumes come across my desk. 4-year degree, 4-year marketing, marketing, advertising. And I'm like, well, there's stand in line. What sets you apart? And this, and I'm so glad that people are starting to recognize this. And what I tell people about the skill thing, and we have a program called an Image and Attraction Campaign for Manufacturing. It's called See Manufacturing Through New Eyes. We're trying to tell the community and the young people, and even people that want to do a career change, hey, look at manufacturing as a career opportunity. And the only, Jesse, the only equivalent I can come up with is I told my board of directors, I said, we're going to take a playbook from the U.S. Army. In the late 70s, early 80s, there was no draft. The Vietnam War still lingered, and were just, but they came out and did a very massive, very good campaign about going into the Army, be all you can be. You're going to improve yourself. It's good for the country. You'll get a skill when you're done. Everything can be said about manufacturing the same way. So we're taking their playbook, and we're going to hopefully change some people's lives, one job at a time.
And the climate out there is really healthy. So it's almost like turnkey. Like as soon as you get that certification, you got a position.
Yeah, when we train these people, and then we're not doing the training. We pay the training. We manage the whole program. It's a training online program and plus we have a lab and a workshop through Eastern Florida. We have an 87% placement in people getting jobs. You show me any other program
That's
that has
huge.
that's because the manufacturers understand it. They want these students. We even have career fairs just for CPT students. So we're real excited. And again, it's going to create our competitive advantage in a few years, because I go to these meetings of other EDCs and they scratch their head and they're like, God, we got to do something about workforce. And
Right.
I mean, but what we're doing is very, very hard. It's not easy to add a whole new training program.
No.
I mean,
No,
it's
not at
very difficult. We're maniacs. So my competitors or my colleagues, if you will, in other counties, they know they need to do something, and I think their idea sometimes is let's get people in a room and talk about it. Well, we did it already. We're doing it. They can talk about it. We're doing it.
Exactly. And I know with your leadership, it has been a lot of action. There is no talk when you know, and that's why we're seeing so many exciting things happening. So if I were to dumb it down and just kind of create like a more of a brief summary here, we need venture capitalists. We need money. We need talent, and that goes for just entry-level trades positions. And otherwise, you know, and I know our economy, and I know we've been doing some good things with Governor DeSantis and some of the leadership at the state level to really have a good tax or low tax climate as well.
You need to have, you have to, like some people say, quality of life would be a great way to attract companies. And
Right.
and that's changed a little bit more so than it used to be. And I would say, well, if quality of life was the only factor, then every company would be in Hawaii, I guess. Right. But here's the thing is you need to be able to be, the cost of doing business has to be competitive. But the other thing that you talk about venture and stuff like that, and there's so much the EDC can do about attracting some venture capital.
Right.
But here's something that we do need to have, and it's really a collective effort, I think, of all the community that I look forward to and working with my partners, the Chambers of Commerce, Tourist Development Commissions. What we don't have is a brand placing. Now, I'm not a marketing person. I'm not a brand person, but I know what I don't know, and I know what we've been able to research. Brand placing basically is a emotional identity of a community. All right.
Gotcha.
When you say Austin, you may never have been to Austin in your life, but you have some kind of emotional, like what it is.
Oh yeah, Texas barbecue.
Right, barbecue, high tech, groovy,
cowboy
whatever.
boots.
Yeah, but it's something. But it's something. It's not bad. Okay,
Right.
It's Austin comes up with. If we want to use that as an example, Austin comes up as something that's slightly kooky but very aggressive. You got Dell Computer, you got University of Texas there.
Yeah.
We don't have that. Now, we may know the Space Coast, but I'm talking about a global recognition, a national recognition of the Space Coast and what it offers, because I spend a lot of time talking to people all over the world, all over this nation, and they still think, are you part of Orlando?
Right.
Space
Exactly.
Coast. Oh, yeah, my grandma has a place there in Brevard County. And I'm like, no, it's Brevard County.
Right.
Or it's an archaic version of, oh, yeah, Cape Kennedy's there. I mean, it still is.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I used to see Jeannie on TV. So
Right.
what I'm saying is that we need to, this is our next challenge. This is going to be a challenge of the EDC. We need to work with our partners and have a clear, comprehensive, collaborative brand placing effort.
I like it. And I guarantee there's plenty of talented marketing companies out
Indeed.
there that would love to be at the helm, and I can recommend a couple. But that's
Sure, we get people in the room, and
Yeah.
like I would like to get people in the room, especially like Gen Xers, like you, young people, your future here. Say what do you want to see when you think of the word Space Coast or Brevard County?
Right.
What is your vision of it? How do you want to show the story? Not from me, I'm old. From young people, your future's here. So
Yeah, and we appreciate that, and I think maybe that we need to do a roundtable,
Yeah.
and just get a couple ideas out there and have
Get the
have a
millennials in town.
brainstorming session. Yeah, I think that'd be powerful. When you say partners, EDC is a nonprofit.
Yeah.
You have a board of directors. Can you tell us more about that structure? Because I think that'll kind of tell a story as well as why you guys are so instrumental in doing what you're doing in the area.
yeah, we're not our structure of our Economic Development Commission is not unusual. It's how we execute sets us apart. But basically, is I have officers, a chairman, a vice chairman, a secretary, and a treasurer. We have an executive board, and we have a board of directors. Our budget is made up of contributions of investors by private sector, a contract with the county, and some investment by the cities. So the funding really is public funds and private funds. We are a private nonprofit organization. Now, the reason it's important that we have a board of directors, and we're the only countywide business organization in Brevard County. You name a company, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, the vice commander of the Patrick Air Force Base, deputy center director of Kennedy Space Center. They're all on my board of directors.
Wow.
And they help calibrate the programs. They're the ones I'll come to and say, especially the executive board, hey, I got this goofy idea about workforce. And they'll say, slow down. Let's take it one step at a time.
Sure.
And rightly so.
Exactly.
And rightly so. Or why are we doing this? And, they calibrate the policies and the programs. They also help tell the story of Brevard County to the community and why. Now, it's important that people participate in EDC, that they fund the EDC. This doesn't happen overnight, and we do it because we have funds to be able to do that.
Now is there anything Joe or Jane Public can do for the EDC?
Well, they could go look at our webpage.
Okay.
Be aware of what we do. I think that would be the first thing. Send us, follow us on, we have the YouTube. We have spacecoastedc.org. Follow us. And I think if they could just go look at the website, I think you'll be taken back to the diversity of the programs we have. The company relocation to Northrop Grumman's, the Embraers, that's sexy and people understand it and they see it. Company's not there, then it is. But they need to see what we do, and they look at it with our Go Contract program, our innovation program, our military program, that this EDC in 2004, we had the Base Realignment Closure Commission close down the Naval Ordnance Test Unit, okay? We reversed it. This is your EDC. This is the community's EDC. The reverse of practice decision is almost unheard of, and we were able to do it, and since then, thousands of jobs have been created just based on that success. Isn't
that amazing? And I'm not sure how much you've you and the board have had been instrumental in the port, because I know the port now has cranes. We're doing a lot more cargo. We're the busiest cruise ship port. Yeah. Just by volume of passengers. It
also plays an infrastructure role in our space community, too. So they play a role in that as well. And they're a wonderful partner. They're on the board of directors. And there's actually another training program called the Certified Logistics Technician that if there was one more day in a week, I would be able to probably get that started.
Right, exactly. We need 8 days. Please, somebody make that happen. Rewriting calendars aside, Let's talk about, and because we are, and I'm skipping the breaks. We only have about 10 minutes, and every minute right now is like so crucial. So I gotta be fair to your time.
Sure.
So I'm trying to keep this under an hour. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Well, 10 years. 10 years. I assume I'll be retired in 10 years. I don't know.
But we need you. You can't retire.
Yeah. You do it, jump the shark. I mean, I'm going to go before I jump the shark, but there's a lot of, I could right now, Jesse, if you got me in another room and said, here, we're going to give you another $200,000 of program money, I can keep 50 people busy. I just talked about what we need to do for the military and enhance that. And I'm going to go back to that about what we need to do for our airmen. And when I say airmen, it's a gender-neutral term. What we need to do about brand placing. We've yet to tell industrial America our story. Our marketing budget is, it's tiny, tiny, tiny. So I spend a lot of time on the phone talking to people. But there's so much more we can do for an economic development program. We have challenges. What are we going to do about the river, for example? Right. The EDC, think about it. We're a countywide collective business organization. There's a lot we could do in areas that are not traditional economic development approaches. But we need to start looking at roads, infrastructure, cleaning the river, because the talent that we're creating from within is one thing, but we also have to attract talent to come in here.
Exactly.
And you've got these people that are we talked about it earlier, they're being sought after all over the world. If you have a software engineering degree, we've got to convince them that we not only do we want to work at wonderful companies like Harris and Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Collins Aviation, but part of that sell is they're buying into and agreeing to live here too. So you need to make that case why this is a place to come here and have your family. And we do have a small program on that. It's not very big. We hope to enhance it more. And it's called Live Big. And basically we're embracing our small town. You can live big in a small community.
Absolutely. And I think it's just, and I grew up in South Florida, and the reason I love it up here in Central Florida is because we are, this is the epicenter.
Right.
Everything is in reach. Tampa 2 hours away,
Yeah.
Theme Park's an hour away, Daytona an hour away, Palm Beach an hour and a half away. There's no more convenient place in Florida than right here.
And what's cool about it too is that and when we talk about geography earlier, and you talk about the green fields and the green belts between in England, they always have green belts in between communities. Well, we have our natural, whether we like it or not, I think it's kind of cool. We have a natural belt between us and Orlando.
Yeah.
And it's the river system, it's the
St.
marsh.
John's, a lot of estuary. Yeah.
So we're never going to have encroachment coming into our area or us into them. So that kind of makes us still this unique island, if you will. And and yet we still have the intellectual infrastructure of a major urban area. The port.
Very true.
Patrick Air Force Base, man to the moon. We have probably more linear coastline of waterfront than any other place. I mean, think about it between Merritt Island and
this is the longest county with the most coastline in all of Florida.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd probably challenge it for anywhere else in the nation, because if you look at just the Merritt Island, the coastline on that side, you got the beach. It's you got Stick Marsh.
Yep. And of the Indian River Lagoon, we are the host to a majority of that river.
Yeah.
So, as being stewards, that is a big responsibility. And it's kind of tough because we are trying to balance innovation and, using new fuels, for instance. There's byproducts. What do you do with those? So we have to mitigate, because it is, the launch area is surrounded by a lot of protected estuaries and state parks and stuff like that. So it's kind of surrounded by
and it's always been that way.
Fragile ecosystem.
I mean, if you think about it, it's always from the first time we stuck a shovel in the ground to create the Saturn. It's always been surrounded by nature, and we've retained it. That didn't change, and it won't. And there'll be different ways for launch operations, and it's just a really unique place. It's just no place like it.
But then therein lies more opportunity. Let's get some environmental technologies. Let's get those people who with those innovations to help mitigate what we're doing.
I would love this place, and this is again if I had the 9th day of the week. But I am going to work on this. It's something we're going to focus. It's a particular the same way I was very interested in the CPT program, and now we've developed it. And my staff they're wonderful. They're taking on. I just kind of watch it from. My staff is just they're brilliant. One of the things I would like us to look at, and this is again a matter of having the time and matter of having the bandwidth to be able to do it. In Milwaukee, there's an organization called the Water Council. It's a center for all freshwater research, business spinoffs, business attraction tied to freshwater. We should be able to focus on doing, and I've talked to Dwayne DeFries about this, and he's
great guy.
He's a great guy, and you need to have him on. And I just adore him so much. And he's very patient with me and my crazy ideas. But this one, he says my stick. But why can't this place somebody someday is going to create some kind of freshwater technology that is going to address the water problems that we have. Why can't it be? We know it's going to happen.
Right.
We know it's going to happen. It's going to happen sooner or later. Why not start focusing that here? And start with the Indian River, what's going on at FIT, how we can clean the Indian River, whether it's desalinization. I mean, this is not beyond me. I would like to take a group. We're starting to do research now. Let's take a group of business leaders and community leaders, and look what they did to Chesapeake Bay. It was really dirty, and they turned it around.
It was bad, and now I would eat a crab from Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, exactly. But see, so it can be done.
Right.
Why don't we go up there and find out what they did? Let's find out what they did wrong. I was at a professional conference one time, and they were talking about best practices, and I raised my hand. I said, you know what? Why don't we have a worst practice day?
I like that.
And everybody gave me a dirty look. But my point was, I don't want to hear what's good ideas. I want to hear the lame dog ideas you had that I can avoid. But why don't we do that? These are the kind of things that this community collectively can do. We have our challenges, but what we do about them sets us apart as a good community from a great community.
Right. And we do have the half-cent sales tax, so there is some funding.
Yes, exactly.
So even if we just put a small committee of an engineer or maybe an economist, like a Dr. Dwayne DeFries, certainly some professors, I'm sure, because I've been to a lot of lagoon talks over at Florida Tech now, not FIT.
Oh, yeah.
They changed their name.
Yeah.
Another name change,
Yeah,
L3 Harris.
I know,
That's
and
going to be a new one to learn as
It
well.
still takes me a few years to get
I know,
into
right?
it, yeah.
But both of us in our vernacular. So we do have talent. We have
Right.
amazing talent.
Yeah.
And having a committee, I think, and maybe that's, again, something, I know there's a lot on your plate, so maybe it's not an initiative that maybe you could do by yourself, but it certainly needs to happen.
But if not, first of all, we recognize there's a problem. That's the first step towards recovery, right? The recognition of a problem. But, it's not just the EDC. I don't want to give the impression the EDC is the end-all, be-all. We can do things with our problem. We have wonderful chambers of commerce with wonderful, brilliant leaders in that area. They have a role and responsibility saying we can't, we as well. We're not taking all this on. We can define what each one of us do, but I really think a collective effort towards the looking at the Indian River, our road transportation system, we need to look at, see what's going on there. Parks, recreation.
Funny you mentioned that. Georgiana from the TPO is going to be on the show here soon, because Vieira Boulevard just opened up, and we have the 2 more exits slated to open up by the end of 2019 as well. So we're getting roads, we're getting interchanges. We're going to be able to navigate around the county a little bit more easier,
right?
A little more gently, because we do have some good arteries, A1A and US1 and 95, but we are with the influx of jobs and positions, then there's going to be more subdivisions and homes and residences built, and suburbs will sprawl. That's just inevitable.
Well, that's why I said before, growth. Florida's going to grow.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't stop it. Do we want the kind of development versus just outright growth that you see namby-pamby going off all over?
Yeah, no, and I think to have a regulated system,
exactly.
So and
tied to good jobs.
Exactly, tied to good jobs. Products, built for all kinds of different economies. Because we still have a very heavy tourism. Job-related, industries here, which probably still accounts for about 60% of all jobs. Restaurant jobs and courier jobs and just support and service-oriented jobs. Plenty of people, but these aren't the 6-figure earners. These are $40,000 to $60,000 earners, and we still need to have affordable housing for them. So we just can't come and build, because we do have talent come from Palo Alto. The biggest residential real estate pricing in just about all of North America, if not the world. And they're selling those $1 million homes, a two-bedroom, 2-bath in the hills of San Francisco, right? And they're selling those for like 1.1 million or whatever it is, ridiculous. And they're coming and they're coming here, and they may be able to afford anything they want here in Brevard County, because it's still very affordable. As far as these markets like Austin and Nashville that you're talking about, those markets are maybe not affordable. We're still very affordable.
We're still
here.
A value for money. Exactly.
Yeah. So so for the cost of doing business, for what these wage earners are getting as they come to Brevard County, what they're going to see is, wow, I get 2 helms for the price of one. Yeah. But it's still important to accommodate, because we can't gentrify too much and then have all of our tourists, position earners, servers, bartenders. Again, a lot of service oriented. We have a lot of people, driving passengers to Port Canaveral for the cruises. So I mean, there's again, they still need a place. Otherwise, they're going to have to commute from, and I don't even want to speculate on what that scenario would look like, but so we have to be responsible.
Well, the key word was to make sure that you still have the market of affordable housing.
Right.
And affordable housing is very much involved in a lot of city planning and in town planning, that they call it in other parts in other states. That needs to be a factor in there, and recognizing it now. The decisions our elected officials are making now will be so critical. And if I had ask anybody who's listening right now, is call up your county commissioner, introduce yourself, thank them for what they're doing. Just say, thank you for what you're doing. Here's who I am. Here's my background. If I could help. But we take for granted what these people do, and we should thank them, your city council, and get to know your mayor, know your city manager, know who your county commissioner is in your district.
Exactly. And a lot of people aren't that responsible. I mean, they go to the ballots and like, I could spell his name, so that sounds good.
Yeah,
Or,
but the biggest impact on our lives are
Right.
going to happen locally, not nationally. So we know
Exactly.
our national people, how are they going to impact our life? Well, maybe. But the biggest impact, where you're going to have a street, how your schools are developed,
Exactly.
if you're going to have affordable housing, are you going to have roads, what's your tax base going to be? That's done locally, and yet it's kind of counterintuitive. We don't know our local officials, and you really should, if just not to call them up and thank them for what they do.
And I preach that all the time. And yeah, it's not their responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
They try to have a finger on the
Yeah.
pulse of everybody's,
And if you, the business community, isn't talking to them, somebody else will.
yeah, they're
And-
going to get outside influence.
Right, exactly.
And so they're not really paying attention
Yeah.
to the constituents if they're being lobbied for
Right,
something specific.
exactly, and focused and the loudest person in the room and stuff like that. We don't want this. We want this. It just this business community, they're so sincere and so earnest. And devoted to their county. I mean, it's truly, they're not just business people, the business and community people. And I see it every day when I work with our board of directors. But but I encourage anybody listening, go talk to your county commissioner. Google it, find out who your county commissioner is, and send them a note. Hey, thanks. Here's what I do. I do retail. I do residential real estate. And if you want to hear about the market, I'm happy to sit down with you and have a cup of coffee and thank them.
That's a really good point. If there is anything that we have in our control, we're not going to be able to talk to the president.
Yeah.
But we could talk to our congressman, mayor, and
yeah, exactly.
There's a lot more approachable people down on the line
Yeah.
that we could actually make an influence in.
And if you just said, I mean, I've sat in many county commission offices and I've heard the phone ring and the kind of calls that they get. I mean, they deal everything from there's a dead raccoon on my street to somebody dropped some glass coming out the garage of going out the trash can man went out and he dropped glass and it's still there. And of course you're thinking, well, why don't you sweep it up yourself? And
Exactly.
They really put up with a lot of stuff and people aren't necessarily as gracious as they could be because they're frustrated and mad. And I have a great deal of respect for other county commissioners, and you just know who they are. Just know who we single member districts. Everybody listening has a county commissioner in their district, and they should know who they are.
Exactly. Well, I know we're getting close on running out of time here, so I just want to follow up with some couple more questions. We'll try to keep them nice and summarized. Where do you see the Space Coast in 5, 10, and 20 years?
Well, I will tell you, that's a good question. I think we'll continue what we're doing. We want to continue creating the job, except for some unforeseen development technology that maybe you put peanuts in the box and they come out of satellites. I mean, unless that happens, we're going to continue. And this isn't my analogy, but I heard it and I thought we'll be the London of the 21st century.
Ooh,
yeah.
I like that.
I mean, in regards to being a port, but it will be an export. Our export will be satellite communications and other things that come. We're London we're talking about in the 18th century London, where it became the center of commerce, the center of trade, the center of finance for the shipping industry. We could be that. It won't be as dynamic and as big because I think you'll see a lot of with the population plateauing off and then the automation going on and stuff. I don't want to scare everybody,
right.
But it's I think we could do that and be very proud.
And how soon do you think we're going to be in Mars?
On Mars, oh gosh, listen, 5 years, I would imagine.
5 years?
Yeah,
Wow.
I think so.
That's a good. If I had to speculate,
would you say that?
Well, because the resources are behind it.
Yeah.
And there's, I can't tell you how many shirts that I see here on the Space Coast. Got Mars. Have you seen those?
Right, exactly.
And
well, we're about ready to put a man back on the new rocket, whatever it's called. I can't even keep up with it. But that's every year is exponentially faster in the development what we're doing. And if it's not Mars, it'll be an asteroid. I mean, we still have to define what we want to do as our space infrastructure and architect. But yeah, I guess. I don't know. I still shake my head and I get on a plane. I still don't know how it flies. I'm still fascinated. This big piece of lunking hardware is up in the air.
It's too heavy to fly.
I know. I'm still amazed. I mean, I walk in this metal tube and I walk out and you're in another state. So don't ask me about Mars. I really.
Yeah, right. It's like a time warp.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, let's see. What's on the front burner? What is what is something that maybe not everybody knows is going to be coming to fruition, but you've been working very hard on, and it's
there's something that's going to come out at the end of July. In fact, we just announced Boeing's headquarters. Remember, we're an area that doesn't have headquarters, and that means a lot of decisions that are being made about Brevard County aren't made here, with the exception of L3. Yes. Yeah. So anytime you get a lot of headquarters, it's important. That brings the infrastructure in of the business development, the legal, the HR. So a lot more of the collectiveness of a true company. So we just announced Boeing with their launch activities. And at the end of the month, we're going to talk about the Fleet Ballistic Missile of Lockheed Martin coming here with hundreds of jobs. It will be to me the equivalent of what Embraer was to Melbourne. This will be to Titusville, and it will happen. And it's but it is also tied to our success of the EDC. Quite frankly, years ago when we saved and turned around the Naval Ordnance Test Unit from not being bracked and moved to Kings Bay. It was stopped, and we've built upon that. That was the military side. This is a Fleet Ballistic Missile, which is the contractor side tied to that. If they weren't here, they wouldn't be here. So that's coming up. And then we have projects, but they're all competitive, and we're working hard, and, just hope for the best. Well, we don't hope for the best. We work really hard and just...
So let's take it personal again.
Okay.
What are you doing tomorrow for Independence Day?
Well, I have family coming in, and we'll just probably eat as usual.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of
barbecue, some watermelons, fireworks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some quiet time. It's been pretty intense lately.
Yeah. Well, show me what's you brought in something regarding the EDC.
I did.
There.
I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. We'll put it in front of that camera there.
I hand it, or you do that? You do
that's fine.
Basically, I talked about the Jesse. I would like to come in one time, or one of my staff, and maybe our chairman of our Defense Alliance, and talk about what we do for the military. Our meetings at the Pentagon. Our last meeting at the Pentagon, we met with this little EDC. Met with the Secretary of the Air Force Wilson and Chief of Staff of the Air Force. Well, fine. I mean, it's a little EDC, but that takes years in making. But what this is, and there's a lot of things we do, but what this is our unveiling, particularly because it's July 4th, of the Space Coast, saluting and recognizing the military families are here, the contributions to the economy, how they play a role, how it is part of the fabric and DNA of Brevard County. So it's sending a message to Patrick and to the military families and to the Pentagon as well, as that we recognize importance and value and honor our military in this county, in particular the families.
And that's an EDC initiative.
Yes, it is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's really cool, especially here that we're celebrating our nation's independence tomorrow. Yeah. And finally, if I could divulge, I am happy to tell our audience that you're committing to a quarterly review or a summary. You're going to come back and continue to visit us. So next quarter will be about October 1.
Okay.
And so again, we're kicking off here formally, and the second or third quarter now of 2019, and I can't wait to see how.
Well, hopefully I'll be able to get into depth of a lot of the stuff that I touched on. If not, there's a lot of people. We have board of directors that I certainly would like, Jesse, you to hear from their perspective. No,
and this would be great because I could help moderate, and we'll have two of you, and we could certainly go back and forth, and you guys could piggyback on some of the developments, because I know for you, in your position, there's so many branches that you're trying to manage. So if you could come in here, we could just talk about one of those branches.
Right, exactly. We kind of touched on a lot of it today.
And we unsurfaced a lot.
Yeah, exactly. But 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag.
Yes.
There. Yeah.
Well, very good. As you heard, this is Lynda Weatherman with our EDC of Florida Space Coast. And is there a way that maybe the public, if they had some input, is there maybe a staff member or someone that they can reach out, or a hotline?
They certainly can. Our phone number is 321-638-2000, and they could talk to Sarah Levanti, and we have other states, but if they ask for Sarah, check our webpage. There's comments in there. You could ask questions and stuff, and also our social media.
That's right. And the address for the Economic Development Coalition Florida Space Coast is
spacecoastedc.org.
.org. So remember that. Well, this has been such a pleasure.
Oh, Jesse, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, because
my pleasure. Thank you.
Your time is super valuable, and I know we've been trying to book this, and now that it's here and gone and went, man. I hope those watching at home or on the free time to this podcast you may want to take some notes and listen again, maybe 2 or 3 times, because we went through so much. Once again, thank you so much, Lynda. And with that, I am going to cue the exit music. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Business Elite Brevard Edition, where we bring to you the movers, shakers, influencers of the Space Coast, and again, bring a little bit of insight from what they do and who they are into again your home and or office, and learn about some of the people who are making the moves behind the scenes, but maybe they're not in the news. You're not hearing about them. So that's what we do here. That's our purpose. Thank you so much for tuning in. And please, if you found some value in this episode, share it, comment, and we'll see you next time. As always, from all of us here at Space Coast Podcast Studios, take care. Have a great 4th of July.